So sometimes the cards fall that way.
Yeah, and we got one more matchup to come, and the players are just about ready. So we can go ahead and introduce the matchup. First player from Asia Pacific, hailing from Japan, it's Tredsred. And his opponent from the United States, a man from my hometown, it's Ant.
Decider match number 4, Tredsred versus Ant.
I don't know very much about Tredsred, but I know he used a lineup similar to me to qualify for this tournament.
I used Ant's deck in APAC playoffs, so I'm glad to fight with him.
Tredsred has Rogue. He has some similar lineup, except he has Rogue. And I'm pretty good against Rogue.
His lineup is strong against me, so I think it's a hard match to me.
It should be pretty hard for him to win. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how the games play out, I guess.
Tredsred versus Ant. Let's rock!
And we are getting ready to start the last series of day number 2 of the Hearthstone Championship Tour Spring here in Shanghai, China. I'm Raven, and I'm not joined by Subtle this time. I'm joined by Rob Wing. How are you doing, friend?
I am doing great. Super excited to be a part of this. You know, now we get to the final group mage of the day, so big stuff on the line here.
Yeah, and the matchup we've got coming up, as TJ just introduced for you, is in fact Tredsred versus Ant. And I think straight away the key point we would talk about before we came up here is just this quest rogue from Tredsred. Just is he even going to be able to get a win with it against this aggressive lineup from Ant?
Right, when you look at the deck list for both of these players, that quest rogue certainly stands alone on an island, and it is going to have to do some work and have to get a little bit fortunate, maybe Glacial Shard bounces something to get these wins against these high-octane aggressive decks.
Yeah, I think definitely, you know, because the nerf hasn't kicked in yet, quest rogue can do silly things, right? You know, it can have an amazing opening hand or just a great draw, get that quest out exceptionally early, and then just beat out their opponents. But it is going to be difficult with Ant running the aggro list. His Pirate Warrior is gone, and Tredsred's Pirate Warrior is gone as well. So just no Pirate Warriors. That's Tredsred's favorite deck, actually.
I was going to say gentleman's agreement there. We just nobody brings pirates. We just don't want to deal with that. But yeah, Tredsred's favorite deck offline here, and you know, and certainly someone we've seen have success with Pirate Warrior as well. So going to be interesting to see how that affects this matchup.
Yeah, and we've heard a lot from Ant. We've actually been hanging out a lot with Ant as well. He's been chilling with us in the back between his matches. He's definitely just a fun guy, just a happy guy to be around. And Tredsred, on the other hand, I've not had a chance to speak to too much, but the fact that he's been practicing with Gundam Flame, one of the masters of aggro, especially from the Asia-Pacific region, is impressive in itself. Because the way I see things is, when you say, oh, you know, I practice with this player, well, you can say, well, that player's great, but also that player wanted to practice with you, which must speak some volumes about Tredsred as a player.
All right, well, Tredsred said he wanted the opportunity to do battle with the Titans of Hearthstone, and he's going to get his opportunity here, one of the Titans of North America, and we're going to open up with Mage versus Quest Rogue.
Yeah, Tredsred's probably thinking, well, got to win with this rogue. May as well start with it and go for it. And the lineup here is Ant is playing the Secret Mage, and in this Secret Mage, he's running Pyros. He's running the current tour, 1 Mirror Entity, 1 Spellbender, and 2 counter spells. So a little bit different than a lot of the Secret Mages we've been seeing so far, but to be fair, we've seen all sorts of different lists. So this is just Ant's take on it.
Right, Secret Mage has been kind of in flux since the deck sort of took off, and people are putting their own stylistic choices. Some people have gone Potion of Polymorph, you know, they pick very specific secret suites, but as you said, Ant has kind of arrived at has his own conclusion, and a little bit inconsistent for him thus far. Obviously, it's struggled against RDU.
Yeah, it's one of the main issues I have with the deck. I look at this and then look at like the Gunter/Freeze variants. I'm just like, every single time I just want to play those, because Secret Mage can just whiff a couple of turns and then you fall quite far behind. Well, we have seen players add more and more late game into it to be a little bit more reliable, a little bit more consistent in being able to battle for that late game.
Well, you mentioned the late game, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the early game for Ant here. He has a lot of powerful tools that can allow him to get going early on. We see the double Sorcerer's Apprentice, the Mana Worm right on one, right when you want it, the Arcanologist, so certainly has options. The Counterspell is a very unique tool when it comes to the Quest Rogue. Obviously, the thing that has to stand out, and you see this very seldomly on, say, Ladder, is that Counterspell can just get rid of the Crystal Core quest. I cannot imagine any feasible universe where Tredsred allows that to happen. But it's something to keep an eye on because the Rogue doesn't really have a lot of expendable spells that it can just use to bait the Counterspell.
Yeah, what it often does in, you know, like high-level competitive matches, as you said, you know, you can't imagine it happening to Tredsred, is it doesn't, you know, he doesn't quest into it, but it stops him playing the quest, which is kind of the same thing to a certain extent. But, you know, as you said about these early threats, the Sorcerer Apprentice, the Arcanologist, the Mana Worm, I was casting with Sol earlier in this matchup, and any early damage is nuts. And also just the fact that, yeah, the Signet Elemental's going to ping off and kill off the Sorcerer's Apprentice, but just getting in for like 5 next turn, maybe even 6 if the spell's played, is absolutely huge. And we can see, although the counter's only at 1 for Tredsred, there is a chance that Ant can actually just go Apprentice counter spell and say, you know what, I'm not going to wait until the quest can be procced. I'm just going to have a counter spell to get like tempo and then just kill him because there is Fireball in hand as well.
Right, when you look at how the early game typically goes for the Mage, say you were playing against Miracle Rogue, something you have to be aware of is Fan of Knives with Blood Mage Thalnos, these combos that can sweep your board, but given the concentrated win condition of Quest Rogue, that's really not something you have to be afraid of. So Sorcerer's Apprentice comes out much sooner, is used much more liberally, and just starts pushing that damage. That is a 3-2 that pushes a lot of pressure early on.
Yeah, and also, like, you know, if your opponent's going like deckhand into it, okay, like there's one less 5/5 charge later on, you know, definitely not the end of the world. And now Fireball, Frostball, sorry, as well to pair with that Fireball. And already Ant will be starting to add up this damage and say, can I just get him in 2 turns at this point? If he can somehow set up the Sorcerer's Apprentice, then next turn he can actually Fireball Frostball.
Every single turn is going to be something where he does that math and just says, okay, do I have the reach, or how do I utilize board combat, minion damage to set myself up to have that reach in the coming turns?
It's pretty much how I play Hearthstone. I go face and then go, how much more can I go face until he stops hitting me back?
You're a good man, Raven. You understand how the game works. And I mean, jokes aside, when it came time to prepare deck lists for this event, you know, we saw a lot of players just straight up say, okay, look, it's not super clear what's going to be here. I'm just going to go with what I feel is overall strongest, overall most consistent, and that's why aggro has been so prevalent.
Yeah, this freezing potion is actually awesome because look at this Mana Worm. 1, it's just hitting for 5. There's the Arcanologist to swing in as well. There's a Fireball in hand. It does actually trade off, but now, like, what does Tredsred do?
How do you interact with the board?
You don't.
You do not.
You interact with the board by sticking your face out and letting it get hit by spells. Yeah, this is just, I mean, the problem with Battlefield Tidehunter is the 1/1's just pingable, right? You know, there's nothing to even think about. He's not got the quest proc yet. The counter spell really slowed Tredsred down then. He's going to get the quest live, and he can prep it out. So he can actually just about get there and create 1/5/5 taunt, but
still going to be facing down a lot of pressure.
Yeah, is it even enough? The Mana Worm deals with that on its own. Then there's, what, 5, 6... 13 available with the ping. But probably go for the counter spell. Maybe even just Fireball the 5/5 down.
Yeah, keep the consistent damage.
Well, you still hit for the same amount because the buff on the Mana Worm, and the Mana Worm's a minion, right? So you probably want to keep hold of it.
Mana Worm is a minion, and yeah, it's going to continue to push that pressure. So
high-level analysis, as always.
You know what? That's why they bring me back to these things, not just because Saddle's feeling under the weather.
But now, Ant's lines might alter a little bit with this Crystal Runner draw because now he can just counter spell and Crystal Runner.
Right, and obviously
and then save the Fireball.
He's seen a lot of spells already. He's seen the double prep, he's seen the Shadow Step, obviously he's seen the Crystal Core, so he's not going to be able to hit anything necessarily that impactful, but if it does block off a Mimic Pod to generate more resources, a second Shadow Step, there are things it can hit that are useful, so Counterspell discounting that minion obviously, but could potentially hit something big.
Yeah, it also just makes him able to play the Crystal Runner and do more stuff with his turn, right? He couldn't Crystal Runner ping anyway. Looks like Ant's just living the smoke life. He's just going to go highly aggressive here and just go in on this Mana Worm. Mana Worm's going to set up for guaranteed lethal next turn unless Tredsred draws 18 cards and they're all charge minions and they get him. And this just isn't going to be enough. And it looks like he's going to be able to ping his way to victory. This line I actually missed because I missed the counterspell buff on the Mana Worm as well. He's actually just going to get him there.
Right, and knowing Quest Rogue, there is no Earthen Ring Farseer kind of just hanging out in the wings. There is nothing that gets him. So again, Tredsred goes ahead and gets a loss with his Quest Rogue and gets the win. The major theme of this series is going to be, can Quest Rogue get a win anyway?
Yeah, and if Tredsred just takes the approach, and this is a completely fine approach of saying, I have to win with Quest Rogue, I will keep playing it in this series until I get a win, then this series could be over quite quickly and could very, very feasibly 3-0 this Quest Rogue.
Sure, and obviously kind of got taken to town by RDU and could just return the favor to poor Tredsred here before the series over.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the issues with Quest Rogue, isn't it, that so many players have actually gone for just aggro lineups that, so more than I expected, to be completely honest, have gone for just full aggro lineups. And it's like, well, yeah, Quest Rogue's fantastic until that happens, and then if so many people have brought it, suddenly you're very weak against the field. It's not as if, oh, in my group I want to dodge this one person. It's like, I need to dodge about 5 people to be able to make it happen.
I mean, the upside is that Quest Rogue does just have the ability, obviously, to have that completely bonkers opening, draw into another 2 bounces, say, in the first 2 cards of their draw, and they can get it done. But yeah, this is obviously, the way you beat Quest Rogue at this point in its lifespan is just to hit it until it dies. So.
Yeah, normally gets the job done. And Ant, again, we said, is looking pretty favored here and probably feeling pretty confident after that win. If you want to find out a little bit more about Ant, we actually went to his house to find a little bit more.
I'm Ant. I don't like to add stuff to my name. I don't know. I can't be more than me, I guess, right? I was born and raised in Fresno. I went to high school here. There is trouble with like gangs and stuff. I usually try to keep myself out of it. I'm like a super positive person. I feel like it comes from my dad. My dad always told me to be like a positive person.
I think he was very close to his dad. My husband passed 8 years ago. It was a big impact for him. He don't like to say anything about his feelings, but I'm pretty sure he take it very hard.
I have seen things that were like, you know, being surrounded by drugs or people that I've seen in school die. Like, it's kind of hard to think about, like having my dad die. I think at the same time, it's not like all of the easiest worlds to see. Video games, they help you get away from the kind of bad stuff that's out there. You kind of build a community where you can have friends and just have a place to go where you know you're safe and you can actually have some fun. I think when Hearthstone came along was probably, you know, not the greatest part of my life. The first time I saw Hearthstone, I was playing Magic at the time, so I was like, oh, what is this? It can never be competitive, because they told me about the whole ladder system. They rank you, it's all the best players in the world is how they put it. So I mean, it sounded kind of cool. It just looked really fun. He just like dragged his arrow, pointed at his opponent's face, and they blew up sometimes. It was great.
I never thought that he was gonna make any money on video games. So I'm very surprised now that he's one of the top 4 in America.
I still want to say, like, it hasn't really hit me, right? Like, I'm going to China to play video games? I'm going to China. That's what we were saying when I qualified. Like, all my friends are like, you're going to China, dog. You're going to China.
When he first told me that he was gonna go to Shanghai, I was scared. This is like my big boy, my big boy. You know, always try your best to beat everybody.
I think video games helped me in my life.
I want something good for him because he's a very, very good person. I admire him a lot.
What's the first thing you can do when you get to China?
Try not to get lost.
Yeah.
I don't know. This whole esports career that I've transitioned to, it just like makes me so happy that this is even a possibility. It feels really great to like know that you're good at something. If I do well at this tournament, I get to go to the Worlds, which is pretty nuts as well.
Got me right in the feels, to be completely honest. Ant's been a lot of fun to hang out with over the last few days. He's just a lot of fun to be around and doesn't mess around when he's actually playing the game either. He said when he first saw the game, you can just, drag an arrow to the face and the face explodes. Well, we just saw that happen, and it looks like he'll be trying to do that again and again versus his Quest Rogue.
Right, I met Ant back in 2014 at the inaugural America's Championship back in 2014. Again, 2014, crazy time to meet him because the game is so new,
yeah.
right? He's as he said, he kind of picked it up and he wasn't necessarily sure on the competitive aspect of it, but he found success incredibly quickly. And he had a solid performance there, and he's really just been in the scene since then. And big heart, big guy, ton of fun to be around, as you said. I've certainly enjoyed hanging out with him. Gonna go ahead, though, and hop into game number 2. Going to be that Evolved Shaman taking on Tredsred's Mage.
Yeah, Tredsred's not going to be locking in the Rogue again, just taking a breather from that deck, and they're going for the Mage here. And again, this is a bit of a strange matchup. The counter spells can actually make quite a big impact. And Tredsred versus Ant's Mage, a little bit different. They are both secret, but Tredsred is running Medivh, Yogg-Saron. And then the secret package is actually Mirror Entity ×2 and the 2 counter spells, and that is it. It doesn't have ice blocks, doesn't have spell benders, but these counter spells could be pretty big here.
Absolutely, and if he can leverage them with the Kirin Tor Mage and give him an early game presence, that's the cool thing about Kirin Tor Mage. When it all works out, Kirin Tor Mage is obviously an extremely powerful, borderline nutty card, but when the synergies aren't there, Kirin Tor Mage obviously an extremely underwhelming card.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how the counterspell ends up working. Obviously, Ant has that coin, which you can leverage as a means of testing for it.
Yeah, and very different from the previous matchup we saw. Tredsred's just going to drop the Kirin Tor and the counterspell. Very good to draw it on 3 there for him. So it is free after playing the Kirin Tor Mage. But this isn't one where you, okay, I'm going to wait for a specific turn to counterspell. Not when you pass up a Kirin Tor Mage, like effectively 6 mana in a 3 mana turn. That's better than Innovate, Rob.
Wow. That's not something we say often.
No,
no.
It's not a lot that's better than
Innovate is pretty good.
Yeah, that's the way I'd rate that card. Be like, Innovate, pretty good.
They're good cards, Brett. Good cards.
Okay, well, the Corsair coming down now, gonna whip out that Patches.
Great way to test for the Mirror Entity there. You know, there's just, this is kind of where Mirror Entity and Counterspell struggle, and fortunate enough to open with the coin, and a lot of the minions that the Shaman is playing, obviously super low impact alone and have a very low cost. The strength of them comes in Bloodlust and Evolve, but has great ways to test for all of the secrets that Tredsred is actually running.
Yeah, I mean, that coin's just going to be used now, and as, the deck lists are open, guys, in case you didn't know, so Ant will know that the secret is going to be a counterspell. Coin can go away now pretty easily. Can drop the Mana Tide, of course, knowing it is not Mirror Entity. Might even hold on, might even just blow a Devolve and save the coin. The coin actually might end up being worth more.
One of the interesting wrinkles about this matchup is that the Shaman just seems to endlessly have things to put on the board, right? They're just continuing to assert pressure. The Mage has to be a little more judicious in the use of the resources because that all-important direct damage has to be split between the board and then actually ending the game. So the Arcane Intellect we saw there for Tredsred, certainly a welcome pickup as it does allow him to gather some all-important resources.
Yeah, and look at this now. Just play Kirin Tor as a 3-mana 4/3. And the problem here is Tredsred on the Mage has like damage permanence against Ant because the Shaman doesn't really run any healing. So there is a chance that with Fireball, Frostbolt in hand, depending on what this book spits out, Tredsred just say, okay, I'm just going to go for it. I just have to try and kill him, and that's it. Because you are not going toe-to-toe against, Evolved Shaman in the long run with this Secret Mage list. It just isn't going to happen.
Yeah, gone are the days of Flamewaker.
Exactly, especially with the coin. It just means you can you trade the coin for a counterspell. So it's just not really going to happen in the long run. So Ant is probably feeling pretty comfortable. Now he's drawn an Evolve, so some of his options are a little bit more flexible now.
Right, obviously, when you see the deck, you think, okay, Doppelgangster Evolve, that's the combo I want to use, but flexibility and knowing when to use Evolve has been one of the telltale signs of great players, especially in the recent
months. Gonna go for it now?
Yep.
Gonna use that coin as and when needed, put the counterspell. Here comes the Evolve, and let's see what we get. Oh, okay. 3 legendaries, Evolve OP.
They're legendaries, but certainly don't want to necessarily oversell the use. Nat Pagel actually working against Ant. We see that corrupted Nat Pagel allows Tredsred the opportunity to draw a card at the beginning of turn. So, yeah, it's a highly statted minion, but you definitely don't want your opponent drawing more fireballs.
I've got a question for you, Rob, and I'm pretty sure you won't know the answer.
Okay.
So I'm just setting you up for failure, basically.
Sounds like our friendship.
If you Bloodlust on that Murloc, and it dies, do you get Bloodlust back?
No.
Do you know that for a fact?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, you did know it. Good job.
Every so often, I do know these things.
So it's only targeted buffs.
Right.
That would be sick.
That would be
oh my God.
ridiculous. And obviously would not be a huge factor for the Shaman. But
It would be nuts, though, in this game. Bloodlust, go in and be like, oh, draw another Bloodlust. Perfect. But still, even with this extra draw from the Nat Pago, it's still looking rough. There's no way for this mage to actually deal with a wide board.
Right,
So
and
he just has to go for it. You see the ping face, and he's just, I was going to say, he's probably just going to hit him in the face and say, well, either get me or don't. This is just going to go down to smoke attacks.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned early on, Tredsred has to kind of get to the point where he's like, okay, I am never, ever getting this board back. It is time to put my foot on the gas and go. And hey, what better way to say you're doing that than when you have 2 fireballs and a frostbolt? A lot of damage coming in here.
It's just killing. Yeah, that's pretty much how, and that devolve. It's very fortunate there for Ant, actually. Having the coin and the 2 devolves that aren't actually that big in this matchup means he could just use them as testers for counterspell. Right. Even though he used the coin for the first one, which opened up that devolve to set up the lethal with the Bloodlust, he just used used the coin, then devolve to say, well, if it's unlikely, but if the second secret is exactly counterspell, I just blow it out, Bloodlust him, get him anyway. So another game goes to Ant.
Yeah, great use of the coin there to save that for when he actually wanted to use that Bloodlust. And, as we said, Tredsred set Ant up to, okay, you need to have an answer, and, well, Ant had the answer.
Yeah. Guess you don't need a second Bloodlust from the Murloc if you're just going to kill them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, very quick series potentially to end the day. Ant is 2-0 up, but Tredsred is not done yet. He can still fight back. We have seen reverse sweeps so far today. We've talked a lot about Ant. In case you don't know much about Tredsred, check this out.
I'm one of the original Hearthstone players in Japan. The Japanese version of Hearthstone was launched 1.5 years ago, but I've been playing the game around 3 years. So I've had more experience than nearly all the other Japanese players. I was nervous last year when I played in the Japan Championship, but I've experienced tournaments and events since then.
Tredsred is going to Shanghai.
So now I'm comfortable being on the stage as a Japanese player. And I think my results from the tournaments I've competed in demonstrate that I'm the best player in Japan. Last time, B787 made it to the championship in the Bahamas. And now for spring, Tredsred is here. So this is a good thing for Japanese Hearthstone. I have much experience with the other players in Japan and their styles of play, but this is an international competition with international players. There are many famous players in this championship, but if things go my way, I can beat them.
Tredsred gaining confidence from his past experience, and Japan just proving to, or at least continuing to just spit out great players.
Now, why not have confidence? As he said, he's one of the old G's of Japanese Hearthstone. He's been hanging around, and, we see these players come out from Japan from time to time, and they always put on a bit of a show. They have sometimes a flashy style, but look, he's down 0-2. He's going to need to do some work, but Tredsred is certainly capable of pulling off that reverse sweep against Ant.
Yeah, it is going to be hard, though, because there is the Druid that is left for Ant, and, already Innovate Hydra. Let's go. This, not on turn 1, of course. This is a second Innovate.
I was going to say, do you actually think that works? No, you get excited about the Bittertide Hydra, and certainly so do I, but he's going to have to wait just a little bit. Hungry Crab, obviously, looking for very specific targets. It's still a 1-drop 1/2.
Yeah, I actually think you still mulligan it.
Right.
In the list, there's actually just so many 1-drops, 2 Enchanted Ravens, 2 Fireflies, 2 Bloodsail Corsairs, which does pull out patches as well.
Right.
And even cheap buffs are pretty good. So we do see the mulligan there, and it's going to be the Tar Creeper, but did keep the Innovate Hydra. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so powerful once it comes out, and unless there's a very specific answer for Bittertide Hydra, it just runs wild and kills you. Now, it did get the Tar Creeper. Tar Creeper has its uses, certainly not what you're thinking when you say, okay, how do we commit to all-out aggression? But Bloodsail Corsair on the pull there.
Yeah, and Tar Creeper actually just does a good job of dealing with Mana Worm, with Arcanologist, all the early minions you don't really want to have to deal with as aggro Druid. Medivh Valet, good job, Tredsred, another good one for my example. But when you innovate out Hydra, if that's what Ant's going to plan to do here on 3, then the mage literally has to have Frostbolt Fireball.
Right. No,
and that's without all the other minions that are going to be being played behind the Hydra as well.
Again, it's specific answers. You have to have them. Now, this Power of the Wild does organically fit onto turn 2 here. Just go ahead and make the 3-2. you make the minions a little more durable?
No, you can double trade here.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just value trades, and you're not planning on requiring a wide board once you innovate out this Hydra.
I was gonna say, you're planning on acquiring a Hydra.
Yeah, you plan on acquiring a Hydra and then throwing that Hydra at Tredsred's face multiple times. Like Ant said, it's all the game. You can arrow over someone's face and they explode. Pretty much been this the tale of this series so far.
Been the tale of Ant, really. I mean, I remember again in 2014, he got the reputation of being that Zoo player. And Zoo, while not necessarily strictly an aggro deck, certainly...
Still is played very aggressively.
Right. All right, so there's the Fireball, but... that Hydra is still looking pretty big, and no immediate answer to it.
Well, there was an answer. It was just coin Fireball trade. And Tredsred's just choosing to leave the Hydra up.
Yeah, with the 1 mana spend, no immediate answer.
Yeah. Post Bookworm. Now he's going to coin Vaporize. That seems crazy to me.
That you wouldn't just get rid of the Bittertide Hydra.
You have an answer to Hydra.
Well, you've seen the patches. What comes out? The Bittertide Hydra, if it just sits there, it doesn't do anything. And the Vaporize doesn't come out. Wow.
Yeah, because he had to ping, or otherwise the minion would go face anyway and test for Vaporize. Especially because Ant would know that the secret is from the book, so it could be anything. So then you go off the mental checklist of mage spells. You just play a minion first, probably. You could play like the Crab, for example. Okay, it's not Entity. Go for a trade, so on, so on. Yeah, it wouldn't have been caught by the Vaporize trap.
And thinking it over there and just coming to, Occam's razor here, simplest answer, usually the correct one in this situation. And
but now look at this. Yeah. The Tar Creeper, like we said, just fends off the early minions from Tredsred.
And the Hydra is no longer isolated.
What does he do? Vaporize isn't going to get him there anymore. There's not even an answer to the Tar Creeper unless you want to fireball it, but if you fireball in that, well, you're in trouble because there's still that Hydra on board.
Yeah, those 3 mouths look real hungry, and they are absolutely going to be claiming their pound of flesh if this game even goes on much longer. The Savage Roar just sitting there if this board doesn't get dealt with.
He's just dead.
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked.
I can't believe it.
We're going to go backstage. I bet we've missed something obvious as to why you wouldn't fireball, but I don't know. Sol can slap me if there's something obvious I missed.
I don't even think they'll know we've been gone based on how short this series is.
That's true. Like, I thought you would cast it. It's already done. Day over.
And we got lunch. We fit in a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Just had a couple of games of Hearthstone between ourselves.
All right, there's
Firefly's
Firefly.
Still fine. Yep. It's still just more stuff. Tredsred's mage. There are some secret mages that have been running Volcanic Potion, but his does not. So unless there was a glyph into AoE,
right.
These Fireflies is a reasonable threat in themselves, but now Ant going through the motions, just testing. This is frankly just too much damage to hold off. Actually, 1 off info at this
I was going to say, you just push the damage there. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have the hero power. Yeah, there's no ice block in this list from Tredsred, so you're waiting on a train that's never coming, friend.
So the story of the day. Someone plays Hydra against you, and you have an option to kill it and you don't, you probably just die, and Ant is going to take the series over Tredsred 3-0. One of the fastest series I've ever cast. My only disappointment is that I couldn't spend more time with you on the desk, Rob, but that was absolutely insane. Like, Ant just got there, and it's not as if he 3-0'd Rogue. He only got 1 win against the Rogue.
Yeah, the big guy from Fresno just pulled it out there, and 3-0, extremely quick, extremely convincing performance. And what more is there to say? This is a guy who started in the competitive scene in 2014. He's made it to the Spring Championship. 1 series win away now from going to the World Championship.
Yeah, and you saw in that video piece we saw earlier how much it would mean to him and how excited he is to even be here and potentially progress to Worlds. And we can check out what his group looked like. RDU stomping through the winners match, going 6-0 in his first 2 matches, and then Ant ended up battling through the elimination bracket and staying in the group and moving on to tomorrow. But less from us, Rob. Ant is standing by with Ali on the stage.
All right, let's hear it for N， 掌声送给我们今天的优胜者 N， 哇，特别精彩的比赛啊，我特别喜欢他，特别可爱哈。那我现在特别想采访一下他现在的心情如何 ？So how are you feeling now? Please describe your emotion now.
Incredible. That's incredible, like Thrall says, right? That's all I can think of right now.
Very good。我刚问他现在心情如何，因为大家刚才看了他的采访视频啊，真的非常不容易。他妈妈呢也是一直反对他打游戏，但没想到居然打游戏还能赚钱，还能第一次出国来另外一个国度参加大型的比赛哈，所以故事非常励志。我问他现在感觉如何，他就回答了一个词：太棒了哈，非常的棒，很爽哈。Okay, so what does it mean to make it to the world, the championship there? Yeah, one more match and you'll make it to the world championships. What do you think about that?
I mean, it means I get to play more Hearthstone, right? I came here to play Hearthstone. Hopefully I get to the finals. That means I get to play the maximum amount of Hearthstone possible, and then they'll let me come back for the World Championship and play more Hearthstone.
I like your spirit, man. Just enjoy the game. 哈，那我问了他这个关于接下来他能够即将进入我们的8强，并且很有可能进入到最后世锦赛的总决赛，有什么感受？他的答案很简单，他就说他只是希望能够打更多的比赛哈，如果能多赢一场，就是多打一场比赛，将来能够进到世界总决赛，就是打好多比赛啊，真的好可爱哈。那我想采访一下他第一次来到中国是什么感受 ？So first time here in China. So could you please tell us how you feeling now? Yeah.
In China?
Yeah. What's the experience been like?
I mean, this is the first time I've ever been international or anything. I mean, it's really hard to think about. Like, it's nothing like I expected. Yeah.
What do you expect?
Orange chicken.
Orange chicken. All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna get you one. All right. 那我刚才问了他这个第一次来中国什么感受，然后他说啊，你别说第一次来中国，他是第一次出国，各位哈，他是非常典型的宅男啊，从来没有出过国，第一次出国，所以特别兴奋，也不知道该期待什么。然后刚才导演非要让我问他，你究竟期待什么？然后他直接说要吃鸡啊，让我想起我一个特别好的同事，也是他是打辩论打特别好的同事，不知道大家知不知道啊？哎。OK， 那最后再问2个问题啊。第一个问题是他打算怎么去准备他接下来的比赛 ？So how are you going to prepare for your for the finals?
I'm gonna try to look at his decks, come up with a strategy, and then relax. Try to clear my head, go into it feeling good.
That's very good. 我问他接下来会怎么准备下一场比赛，他会说他要详细的去研究对方的卡组，并且制定出策略，但是。制定完之后呢，就要放松休息。我发现他整个人状态特别好哈。Last question. I remember that in the past in the one interview you said that if you win the champion here, you're going to run the mayor of your hometown. Okay. So is that still a deal? Are you still going to do that?
Oh hell yeah!
All right, that's great. All right, now we're witnessing the birth of a new mayor. 最后一个问题我问的是，他之前在一次采访里面讲过，他如果这一次。这个我们的锦标赛夺冠的话，他即将回他的家乡去竞选市长。各位啊，掌声送给他好吗 ？Right。他所在的城市是加州第5大城市啊，不是很有名，我给忘了。那也是非常不错的一个城市，所以他非常有信心啊。那我们也希望他能够最终真的能获得冠军，说不定我们将来都见证了一个市长的诞生。我们再把掌声送给他好吗 ？Congratulations, Yuan. Oh, we love you so much. Right, thank you. Right.
I'll tell you what, if Ant becomes mayor of Fresno, I'm going to move there. There you go. That's something I'll commit to.
He'll accomplish what TJ could not and get us to move to Fresno. A guy, like I said, just a big heart, and just listening to him talk about the game. He's excited about the opportunity to just play more Hearthstone, have the ability to compete, meet more people, make new friends. I mean, it's really hard not to fall in love with Ant.
Yeah, 100%. It's the first time I met Ant, and I just had so much fun hanging out with him for the past few days. And also, I think you could just tell as well how much he's maybe even just taken back, maybe not even expected to get this far. Because, his answers were just a bit like, I think he was still processing the win more than anything. He was like, oh, I've actually won, I've made it. Because, we all knew he was good enough 100%, but I think there's always just a factor where until it happens, you don't really believe it, until you actually get to that point.
There's also just the rush when you're competing, right? You go in there, you 3-0 after getting 3-0'd by RDU. It's hard to process at times, just the sheer shock of the experience. Yeah. And like you said, he's never traveled internationally. This is his first time out of the country, so this is a lot for him to take in, but it's cool to see him smiling about it, right? That's, at the end of the day, what it's all about.
Yeah, and we've had a whole day of Hearthstone so far.